The president of the AFDB, permit me to extend all other courtesies and protocols. I actually was expecting to be called after the president of the AFDB, so I'm a little unprepared to go ahead, but I think it's kind of him to permit me to make my hopefully brief remarks, as I have to attend to another engagement outside of Abuja. I'm delighted to welcome you all to Nigeria for this important African Economic Conference. The theme of this conference, Feed Africa Towards Agro-Allied Industrialization, is very timely. The global commodity price shocks with the sharp decline in the price of oil have had major negative impact on the economies of several African countries. Nigeria, of course, is no exception. Because oil accounts for over 70% of government revenue and over 90% of foreign exchange earnings, shocks to global oil prices have significant effects on the Nigerian economy. But in our peculiar case, the vandalization of oil facilities, resulting at some point in the loss of over 1 million barrels of oil a day, clearly worsened our situation. As a result, Nigeria has witnessed in the past few months a sharp decline in economic growth. But we're determined to come out of the oil price and production shock-induced recession. We are working to expand our share of non-oil revenues, expanding the fiscal space, closing leakages, enhancing transparency and accountability in the management of public finances. But this will not be enough. Even when we get growth back on track, we must ensure that growth is inclusive and that it touches the lives of millions of Nigerians in rural areas who depend on agriculture as a source of their livelihoods. The key part of the solution, therefore, must be to rapidly raise the productivity of agriculture, reduce our dependency on food imports, and expand foreign exchange earnings from export-oriented agricultural products. Nigeria has comparative advantage in agriculture with vast amounts of arable land and good agro-ecological environments. And as a government, we are continuing policies to increase food production. The increased food output will help government to address food security and to provide decent quality meals for kids in school through our homegrown school feeding program. The government also, through its Anchor Borrowers Program, has launched a massive effort to expand rice production to reduce Nigeria's dependence on rice imports, which puts high pressure on our foreign exchange earnings. The private sector, of course, needs to play a significant role to link farm and agri-businesses, connecting food production, logistics, food processing, and agro-allied industries. As government, we are working on incentives to support the private sector in agro-industrial development. Just last week, I was at some factories, some agro-allied factories in Anambra State, and also in Lagos State. In Anambra State, I was at the Boko Bros plants. I was also looking at some of the work that's been done around palm kernel in some of the agro-allied factories in Ogun State. I also looked at the Honeywell food and agro-allied plant, where they have a sorghum flour mill and a feed mill as well. They're also doing a wheat processing mill there. In the same vicinity, Lad Group is doing possibly the largest shea butter plant in Africa. But I'll just talk a bit about just one example of some of the issues around the agro-allied type industries that we have seen and what exactly is happening in some of them. In about an hour from now, I'll be going to Kano State to visit the Sonny Dangote tomato paste factory, which is one of those private sector agro-allied efforts that we're trying to support. We had decided as part of our strategic implementation plan for this year to prioritize the processing of tomato paste so as to become self-sufficient in that particular product. The choice of tomato paste was predicated on our ability to produce tomatoes in large quantities several times a year, as well as its extensive use, of course, in Nigerian meals. We also saw it as an opportunity to generate a large number of agricultural jobs, but also as a means of adding value along the agro-allied chain. But we found, and which speaks to the importance of this conference, is that there are many factors that affect our national aspirations in this area. Some of these issues start at the farm, such as the need to plant the appropriate quality of the fruit to be used for processing. Now, this, of course, meant drawing on research, but also ensuring that the right seeds are available to farmers and at the right time, and also that fertilizers are available and also at the right time. And of course, this past year, no one factored in tuta absoluta. In fact, I didn't even know that such a thing existed until it struck the tomato plants. Of course, all our huge expectations around the harvest of that particular crop. But quick and effective response to that problem also is one of the issues that arose around that. But the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, I'm sure, will be able to probably talk a bit more about those issues. Then there's the issue of uptake and storage. Several of our large commercial farms have outgrower schemes that will buy the produce from their surrounding small-scale farmers. However, a lot of small-scale farmers are not linked to large farms, so they face the problems of transportation, storage, especially where the tomatoes, of course, are ripe. That poses additional challenges. At factory level, after ensuring that the quality of the tomatoes purchased are suitable for conversion into paste, operators still have to contend with issues of infrastructure, especially power generation. This is a very important issue because it goes to the very heart of being competitive against imports from other parts of the world which have penetrated the market. Indeed, that trade dimension is one that is particularly critical because of dumping and smuggling, which make it very difficult for our tomato factories to compete. We accordingly have to calibrate appropriate levels of support and protection for this sector. Of course, that involves, looking at the whole, myriad of trade rules and agreements and all of that. But there is a real danger that even with the best efforts, with production and all of that, the tomato industry may not be competitive against imports and dumping and the fair amount of smuggling that's going on. So these are some of the issues, of course, that we have to deal with. Indeed, some of our manufacturers find it expedient to focus on packaging imported concentrate, which saves the trouble of trying to compete with tomato paste from abroad. But of course, that means that you cut out the farming community entirely. And really, that doesn't make sense from the point of view of our own plans to expand the agricultural base and at the same time, create opportunities around processing and the entire value chain. Another element which our tomato farmers experience, tomato farmers and tomato paste manufacturers have to contend with include the high cost of finance, which we're trying to mitigate through our development institutions like the Bank of Agriculture and the Bank of Industry. We also have a commercial farmers credit scheme, which is really for small-scale farmers, and access to that. We've been trying to expand the possibilities of access to that. Part of that is working through our Bank of Agriculture, trying to revitalize the Bank of Agriculture itself and, as it were, reinvent it so that it's much more able to give the kind of support, not just financial support, but also advice to the industry. I've outlined some of these issues in order to give a flavor of some of the issues that we're dealing with in just one agro-allied sector alone, and I expect, hopefully that the outcome of your discussions will throw more light and give policy prescriptions on some of these issues.